Now on to Chevron. Now it's time to hear from our first set of presenters, Alvin Wasserman and Miles Ramsey, as they reprise some of the great work from McKim Chevron. You've heard Miles Ramsey's voice on literally thousands of radio commercials over the years. Many he wrote and many he doctored, adding his very particular sense of the absurd. Miles co-founded the very successful uber-creative GGRP sound production studio, which is still in the market. He's won 1.5 tons of awards all for this, and was a secret weapon of many a Vancouver agency when it came time to get the big guns out for critical pitches. Besides all this, he of course was the face and voice of Chevron, your town pump, for over a decade, helping cement Chevron's #1 brand position in British Columbia. Alvin Wasserman answered an ad in the back of a marketing magazine for senior copywriter and flew out for interviews with McKim, and literally on his last dollar. He got the job and over time moved from senior writer to associate CD to co-creative director to finally branch manager before the McKim curtain came down. Starting a creative-only agency with fellow McKimsters Tim Dundon and Bill Cozens, they went on to co-found what is now British Columbia's largest full-service independent agency. He's done a bunch of good work, helped some of BC's most important brands, judged pretty much every major advertising award show from the Clios to Cannes, and picked up some hardware along the way. As president of Wasserman and Partners, he gets to do what he likes best. Work with a crew of brand-savvy, creative individuals, and keep learning new ways to tell stories, open minds, think outside the box, and play David versus Goliath in the marketing world. Alvin and Miles, please welcome them to the stage.
Thanks everyone for coming. It's so great to see all these faces, and everybody's looking even better than the last time I saw them, so it's just amazing. I want to just say thanks to the number of people here who are instrumental in making it all happen, and making McKim, I think, a truly remarkable gathering of dedicated individuals, and instigating in all of us, those who went on to form their own agencies like myself, and there are other couple of people here who formed their own agencies, as well as other people who went on and helped other agencies. McKim, and what we learned from there was the spirit of working together in a way where the whole, obviously greater than the parts, and then there was something special about giving back, giving to each other, and making something bigger than any one of us individually. So I want to say that before we start anything on Chevron, which is fabulous. Miles is not only the face of Chevron for many, many years, but his particular sense of humor infected us all, especially Tim Dundon, who hates parties, and that's why he's not here, and made it all possible. Miles, maybe you can start with a couple of particular stories of the days.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Miles.
It's like an AA meeting.
No sheet metal workers here.
Alvin just busted me on this, and I will tell you this. As has been alluded to in the introduction, I did more than Chevron. I produced probably 5,000 music tracks over the 35 years of my career in the business. I wrote and produced God knows how many radio commercials, often comedic commercials, with dialogue and stuff. That was kind of where I always went. And also, I was hired secretly by many, many agencies, probably all of them at one time or another in Vancouver and elsewhere, to be a script doctor, to help an already existing concept or script because maybe it wasn't quite as funny, zippy, whatever, as it might be. And Alvin said he could always recognize one of my doctored scripts because the punchline was always something to do with sheet metal factories. I didn't realize that, but there you go. Go ahead, Al.
So when I took over as creative director, we had an incident with Chevron in which the key Chevron man had literally fallen off a roof and unfortunately met his demise in Toronto. And one of the jobs I had, and I brought in Tim, of course, on this, was to find the new Chevron man. And so we had all these casting reels and casting directors, and we were looking in Toronto, and we were looking in LA and New York and those kinds of things, and we were looking, and like, we just couldn't find the new Chevron guy. And then finally, because we had done so much work with Miles and radio, Tim said to me, he said, you know, we should just use Miles in the meantime, because, you know, what the heck? And I said, yeah, Miles in the meantime's fine. And so Miles in the meantime was, I don't know how many spots, but many, many, many spots, and he ended up being the Chevron guy. So that's the first story, and it's a really true story.
It is. I can recall helping in the casting process because I worked with a lot of actors.
He didn't work very hard in the casting process.
I also knew what their budget was, so, you know. I did help in the process, you know, getting in casting reels from various agents that I worked with in other markets. And I can remember sitting with Tim and Alvin, and they finally just said to me, no, he's too handsome, he's too much of a hunk, he's too, so why don't you do it?
Yeah.
Well, I had that on my office wall for many years, not a hunk, right?
Yeah, which made him famous, of course. So the next thing was, we decided we wanted to move the production, which had been done for many, many years, in fact, since the beginning, the original creative team, Doug and John, we wanted to move it to Vancouver. And well, that was a big deal because, oh my God, Vancouver was then not had the reputation for doing quality, amazing television work. But I, of course, knew that it could do it. There's no question at all. So we said, okay, we're going to, hire Circle at that time, and they're still in existence today. I don't know, I was hoping that somebody from Circle would be here. And they said, okay, we're going to make sure it's going to be great. So the whole thing was, it was a white set, as you saw, and we were allergic to shadows. There should not be a shadow. Phil Lindsay was the cinematographer, and everybody was running around saying, no shadows, no shadows, no shadows. And it was a big thing. People were worried. We were pre-lighting 2 days before. We were like unbelievable. We used every light in Vancouver. And then finally, I said, Phil, how are you going to do it? Because I'm on the line here with my idea to move it over and everything. He said, Alvin, do not worry. I am turning on every single light in the entire city of Vancouver available for rent on this set. There will not be a shadow anywhere. And there wasn't.
No. Part B of that story is that working on that set, which was a white cyc and a white floor, no shadows, of course.
None.
We had to wear booties, like little paper booties over our shoes when we were rehearsing. One of the hallmarks of all the Chevron spots was that there were no edits ever. It was always one continuous shot from start to finish, 30 seconds. So, yeah. Take a look at any of the archival Chevron spots, there's no edits. So the pressure was on me as a performer to nail the dialogue, the monologue, within the allotted time. And we had to have enough time at the end for the logo to come up and Ched to say, ding, ding, your town pump. And so I really struggled hard to make sure that I knew the dialogue. Well, the first spot I worked on was at what was then Panorama Studios up in West Vancouver, long gone now. And
beautiful condos.
Yeah, lovely condos. The lighting is terrible though.
No, really bright.
One of the first spots I worked on was, the gag was there was a car carrier with new cars driving onto the set, and I was in front of the pumps doing the dialogue, and while I was talking, the car carrier would drive out and another truck would drive in with smunched up cars headed for the dumpster, right? They could only do that, the studio wasn't big enough. So you think a tank knocking out a little hole in the wall, they took out the whole back wall of the studio. It was the last thing ever shot there. And I was sweating bullets because I had to nail the dialogue for, the spot. We only really had time for one take because they had to then repaint the set because of the tire tracks and my footprints and everything. So everything had to be repainted. So if I didn't get it right, it was going to be 4 hours before we could do take two. And I think we only did 2 takes.
2
of that.
takes. Yeah. It's amazing. And the final thing I wanted to say, and we're just talking about this before. We had a credit card at Chevron, and talking about marketing challenges, because we get all marketing challenges, and today they're just as hard. But just to put this in perspective, we had a credit card, and Chevron really wanted to push the credit card. I remember having the discussion with, I think it was Trevor who was running the account, saying, what is it about this credit card that people would want the card? And he would say, nothing. So there's absolutely nothing about that card. I said, well, I'm looking for an edge, where's the marketing insight? And I said, what about the interest rates? He says, they're high. I said, what about the benefits, like if you points and things? None. I didn't have any of that. I said, oh, okay. He said, but we do have member since on it. So as long as you were a member, you have this, you've been a member since. I said, okay, good. We have member since. That's it. And then the other thing is, we can get it to you fast. I said, how's that? Because we will accept you any other credit card. Just bring in your other credit card. If you're good enough for somebody else, you're good enough for Chevron. Right? So we said, okay, great, we're going to do this. So we did the commercial. We ended up with tons of people, and they were proud of the fact that they were these, that they were members since whenever. But then they wanted to make sure that Miles was a member in good standing and would not be seen at an Esso station. So you should just continue this story.
This is the part B. I got a call from the marketing department of Chevron, not the main guy that we dealt with, Roger Kessel, but somebody down the food chain called me, and he said, we would like it if you only bought your gas at Chevron. And I said, yeah. And he said, so where do you get your gas? And I said, closest place, And he said, well, what if we gave you a credit card? And I said, I got a lot of credit cards, And he said, well, what if we paid for your credit card? I said, well, now you have my attention. What I didn't mention at the time was at that time I had a 42-foot Ocean Super Sport with 2 450 horsepower diesel engines in it. And the very first thing I did when I got that card, and it was fast.
It was fast.
I headed straight to the Chevron gas barge, and I said, fill her up, all the tanks. So about 2 days later, I got a call from the same guy in the marketing department at Chevron. And he said, do you have a boat? And I said, why, yes, I do. And he said, shit. Then he called me back and he said, I should have mentioned there's a limit to it. True story.
So that's a few stories. We're going to just play a couple of the spots now, and then you can sort of reminisce, because even though we love the talking car commercials, these were very special campaigns. Yeah, just go through some of them.
I'll step out.
So this is some of the early work, and then Miles came in, and then we got the rights to the Supreme song, which is nice. You'll see that. Miles was very strong in his younger day, and very smart. Absolutely.
There are hundreds of Chevron stations conveniently located throughout BC, which means that almost anywhere you drive, you can get the same high-quality gasoline. And that's probably why so many people are stopping in at Chevron and filling up their tanks. For full service or self-serve, give us a ding. Chevron, your town pump. One reason Chevron customers became Chevron customers is because of our many conveniently located stations. Another is because we offer 3 top-quality gasolines, and that many of our dealers provide mechanical services. Then again, we also have other customers who, for a lot of different reasons, first came in to see us just for a change. For full service or self-serve, give us a ting. Chevron, your town pump.
Legal spot. We showed it to you anyway. Copyright infringement.
Boy, that's a beauty.
Isn't it?
I see you use Chevron gasoline too.
Always have.
Can you tell us why?
Sure, because it's specially made to get the most out of my car's engine.
Runs pretty good, eh?
Pretty good. Listen, it can go from 0 to 60
In a tailwind?
in 6 seconds flat. Do you want a drag?
Chevron, your town pump.
Okay, time for our featured performers, two of my closest personal friends, Supreme and Supreme Plus. They've got some really big numbers for you. In fact, Supreme Plus has the highest octane numbers in British Columbia. Here they are, the Supremes! If your engine's making noises like this, it could mean that your car needs Chevron Supreme Unleaded. Or it could mean that you have a flamenco dancer under your hood. Hi! Enter our gasoline polite contest, and you can end up driving off with a lifetime supply of Chevron gasoline. Blue Bridge!
Chevron, your town pump.
That's it.
As Miles said, it's like an AA meeting, Advertisers Anonymous. Come on, I had to use it. I wanted to thank Alvin and Miles, and please give them another round warm applause.